The key turned in the lock, the sound too loud in the silence that greeted me. That was the first sign. The silence. No TV blaring cartoons, no half-hearted argument about homework, no husband humming off-key in the kitchen like he always did when he thought no one was listening. Just nothing. I dropped my bag on the floor, the leather hitting the tiles with a thud that echoed through the empty house. "Hello!" I called out, even though I already knew. The air smelled wrong, stale, like no one had breathed in it for hours. The kitchen was spotless. No dishes in the sink, no cereal box left open on the counter. My husband's favorite mug, the one I'd bought him as a joke, "World's Okayest Dad" printed in obnoxious font, was gone. I checked the fridge. His protein shakes, the ones he insisted on stocking despite never actually drinking them, were still there. But the expensive imported beer he saved for special occasions, missing. That's when I saw it. A single sheet of paper on the counter, folded neatly, like he wanted to make sure it wouldn't blow away. As if I wouldn't find it, as if I wouldn't look. "We need space." That was it. No, "I'm sorry." No, "We'll talk." Just space. Like I was some cliché from a bad rom-com, like he was doing me a favor by leaving without warning. I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound that bounced off the walls. Of course he couldn't even be bothered to write a proper goodbye. I walked to our bedroom, no, my bedroom now, and yanked open the closet. His suits were gone. The expensive ones, the ones he'd always made a show of thanking me for buying. The ugly ties his mother gave him every Christmas, still hanging there, untouched. How thoughtful. I turned to our son's room. The bed was made, too neatly. He never made his bed. His favorite hoodie, the one he'd fought me about washing last week, wasn't draped over the chair. The Lego set we'd been working on together sat abandoned on the floor, half finished. That's when it hit me. They hadn't just left. They'd packed. They'd planned this. I pulled out my phone, my fingers numb. No missed calls, no texts, just a notification from the security system. Front door opened at 2:37 p.m. while I was at work, while I was paying the bills. I dialed his number, straight to voicemail. Then I called the only other person they could have run to. My sister answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said, her voice too bright, too careful. In the background, I heard it. My son's laugh. "Oh," she said, like she'd just remembered. "I was gonna tell you." I hung up. The house was so quiet, so empty. And then I laughed. I laughed until my throat burned, until my knees gave out, until I was sitting on the floor of my son's room, staring at that stupid, half-built Lego set. Because what else could I do? The punchline was me. It had always been me. But not for long. The phone felt like a dead weight in my hand, the screen still glowing with her name, Camilla, in bold letters like some sick joke. I could already picture her, on the other end, perched on her pristine white couch, probably twisting a strand of her perfect blonde hair around one finger, like she always did when she was nervous. I hit redial before I could think better of it. This time, she picked up immediately. "Listen, put him on." I cut in, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. No screaming, no begging, just 3 words that tasted like acid on my tongue. A pause, then shuffling, muffled voices. "Your mom wants to talk to you?" Delivered in that saccharine tone she reserved for public appearances. More silence. Then finally, "Hello?" My son's voice, flat, distant, like I was a telemarketer interrupting his dinner. I closed my eyes. "Did you pack your inhaler?" A beat. "Yeah." "Your math homework? The one due Friday?" "Dad said it's fine." I could hear the TV blaring in the background. Some obnoxious game show Camilla pretended to hate, but secretly loved. I could almost see them all curled up on her overpriced sectional. My husband's arm slung around her shoulders like it belonged there. "Okay," I said. And then, because I couldn't help myself, "You know you can come home anytime, right?" A sigh. "Mom, it's just for a while." Just for a while. Like this was summer camp. Like he hadn't walked out without saying goodbye. "Right," I said. Have fun. I hung up before he could reply. The screen went black. Somewhere in Camilla's designer living room, my family was laughing. And in the echoing silence of my empty house, so was I. The wine bottle shattered against the wall with a violence that startled even me. Cabernet bled down the wallpaper in thick crimson streaks, pooling on the floorboards like some grotesque modern art piece. Glass glittered everywhere, in my hair between my toes, catching the dim kitchen light like mocking little stars. I stared at the mess, chest heaving. My reflection in the oven door showed a stranger. Mascara smeared into raccoon circles, lips peeled back in something too feral to be a smile. That's when the laughter started. Not the hysterical kind you see in movies, but something lower, guttural. The kind of laugh that starts in your spleen and claws its way up. I slid down the cabinet until I hit the floor, knees pressing into broken glass. The pain was sharp, clean, more honest than anything I'd felt in months. Blood welled up in perfect little beads, and for one absurd moment I wondered if I should text him, "Guess who needs stitches?" just to see if he'd bother replying. Then it hit me. The glorious, terrible clarity. They'd left me with nothing but silence and broken glass. And in that emptiness, I found something better than anger, better than grief. I found purpose. The wine stain would never come out of the wall. Good, let it stay. Let it be a reminder that some messes can't be cleaned up. Some betrayals can't be fixed with pretty words and fake apologies. I stood up, brushing glass from my palms. The cuts stung. The future stretched before me, dark and glittering with possibility. They wanted space? Fine. I'd give them all the space in the world. Enough space to watch everything they loved burn. The glow of my laptop screen painted the dark bedroom in cold blue light as I logged into our joint accounts. No, my accounts now. The numbers glared back at me, a digital ledger of everything we'd built together. Or rather, everything I had built while he pretended to be a family man. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Transfers, liquidations, account closures. Each click was a scalpel, carefully severing him from the life he'd taken for granted. By the time he realized what was happening, there'd be nothing left but overdraft fees and denial emails. I paused at his brokerage account, the one he'd bragged about at dinner parties, the one he thought I didn't understand. Oh, but I did. I understood exactly how much he stood to lose. A few keystrokes later, and his precious stocks were sold off at a loss. Let him explain that to his smug financial advisor. Next, the credit cards. I canceled everyone, then reported his Platinum Amex as stolen for good measure. The fraud alert would hit his phone in the middle of dinner at Camilla's, right between the artisanal bread and the organic salad she'd no doubt serve with a side of smug superiority. Then, the pièce de résistance, his beloved Tesla, a quick call to the police, a fabricated story about an estranged spouse refusing to return marital property, and voila. His precious status symbol would be flagged in every database from here to Nevada. I leaned back, watching the confirmation emails roll in. The house was still silent, but now it felt different. Not empty, charged. Like the calm before a storm. They'd left me with nothing, now I'd return the favor. I scrolled through Camilla's Instagram feed with clinical precision, every perfectly filtered brunch, every coyly angled selfie with my son tucked under her arm like some prized accessory. The captions made my teeth ache. Family is everything beneath a photo of them baking cookies in her marble-countered kitchen. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I started screenshotting. Not just the recent posts. I went back years, digging through tagged photos, buried comments, every digital breadcrumb of their betrayal. There was the vacation they'd taken without me last spring, labeled Just Us Three. The charity gala where my husband's hand rested too low on Camilla's back. Even better, the DM from him to her college roommate a decade ago. Tell Cam she looks hot in that black dress. Sent 2 days before our anniversary. I compiled it all into a sleek PDF, complete with timestamps and circles highlighting every damning detail. Then I got creative. His company's HR portal accepted anonymous submissions. His conservative Catholic parents' email addresses were still in my contacts. The alumni newsletter for his precious Ivy League alma mater had an open submissions policy. I leaned back as the last email whooshed away into the ether. The real masterpiece? A new Instagram account, at Golden Family Uncensored, where I drip feed the evidence every time they posted another nauseating, hash-blessed update. Let them explain why Daddy's business trips always coincided with Aunt Camilla's spa weekends. Let my son see how long his new, perfect mom kept smiling when the neighborhood mom started whispering at soccer practice. Social media built their facade. I'd make sure it buried them. The first text came at 3:17 a.m. A blurry Snapchat of my son and Camilla making pancakes. Her manicured hands guiding his as syrup dripped onto her pristine quartz countertops. I left it unread. The next dozen messages followed the same pattern. Performative happiness met with digital silence. His calls started on day 4. I let each one ring out, imagining his confusion curdling into frustration as voicemail after voicemail filled with nothing but my default greeting. By week 2, his text shifted tone. "Why are you ignoring me?" became, "Dad says you're being childish." That's when I knew the cracks were forming. I waited until his third angry voicemail, the one where his voice broke on "Don't you even care?" to respond with surgical precision. A single forwarded email chain from 3 years ago. His father discussing custody lawyers with Camilla while I was in the hospital with food poisoning. No commentary, just truth in its rawest form. The reply came instantly. "This is fake." I didn't argue. Instead, I uploaded the security footage from our Nest camera to a private YouTube link. Time-stamped clips of his father sneaking out at 2 a.m., returning with Camilla's signature jasmine perfume clinging to his collar, sent it with the caption, "Ask him where he was on your 10th birthday." The silence that followed was sweeter than any revenge fantasy. 3 days later, my doorbell rang at midnight. Through the peephole, I saw him standing there, shoulders hunched, eyes red-rimmed, duffel bag at his feet. I didn't open the door. Not yet. Let him stand in the rain a little longer. Let him understand what betrayal really felt like. The lesson would stick better that way. The first domino fell when his company's HR department forwarded the anonymous concerns about workplace ethics to the board. By noon, his keycard was deactivated. By 3, his pretentious leather chair was being wheeled out of the corner office. Camilla's Instagram went private after the flood of comments questioning why she was posing with a married man's child. Then came the screenshots, leaked DMs where she'd mocked his receding hairline to her friends, the same ones now flooding his inbox with, "Bro, you left your wife for this?" My son stopped answering their calls entirely. He'd moved from her guest room to sleeping on a friend's couch, his location pinging across town, while his father frantically Venmo'd him increasing amounts of "just let me explain" money. The Tesla got repossessed on a Tuesday. Same weekday, they'd chosen to walk out. Poetic, really? I watched from across the street as the tow truck hauled it away, his pathetic pounding on the driver's window, doing nothing to stop the inevitable. Camilla's carefully curated life unraveled fastest. The boutique yoga studio revoked her membership after the owner recognized her from my Twitter thread. Her book club took a hiatus. Even her dry cleaner suddenly lost her favorite silk blouse. The final blow came via certified mail, a notice from the IRS auditing both their finances. A little bird had whispered about undisclosed assets. They'd wanted a fresh start. Now they had nothing but scorched earth. I waited until the first frost settled over the city before delivering the coup de grace. Timing mattered. Cold weather made desperation sharper, more visceral. The perfect backdrop for destruction. I composed the email with meticulous care, attaching every shred of evidence I'd stockpiled over the years. His deleted texts to Camilla from our anniversary trip. "Wish you were here instead." Her Venmo payments to a private investigator she'd hired to dig up dirt on me. The spreadsheet where they'd calculated child support payments like a business transaction. But the centerpiece? A video. Not security footage or some grainy phone recording. A crisp, high-definition clip of them in her kitchen 2 weeks after they'd left. My son was at school. The camera, a housewarming gift I'd planted in her smart speaker, caught everything. "We need to get him to stop asking about her," my husband muttered, swirling his bourbon. Camilla sighed, picking at her salad. "He'll get over it. Kids adapt." "What if she fights for custody?" She smirked. "Please, she's too proud to beg." Then the kicker, him leaning in, whispering, "Should have done this years ago." I encrypted the file, set it to deliver to my son's phone at 3:00 p.m., right as his last class ended. No message, no explanation. Just raw, unfiltered truth. The fallout was instantaneous. My son showed up at my doorstep within the hour, face pale, hands shaking. He didn't speak. Just shoved his phone at me, the video still paused on his father's smug expression. I didn't gloat, didn't say, "I told you so." Just opened the door wider and let him walk inside. Across town, chaos erupted. My husband's frantic calls went unanswered. Camilla's attempts to spin the narrative collapsed when the video leaked to her influencer friends. By midnight, #homewrecker trended in our metro area. The divorce papers arrived at his Flophouse motel the next morning, along with a countersuit for full custody, citing parental alienation and emotional neglect. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for eviscerating deadbeat dads, took one look at the evidence and granted everything I asked for. Camilla's sponsors dropped her. Her landlord suddenly needed the apartment for family. And my husband, he showed up at my door one last time, stubble shadowing his hollow cheeks. "You win," he rasped. I sipped my coffee, savoring the bitterness. "No," I corrected, "you just lost." Then I closed the door in his face. The game was over. And for the first time in years, I was free. The penthouse smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, sunlight glinting off steel and glass, a far cry from the suburban house with its stale memories and cracked foundation. I ran my fingers along the marble countertop, cool and unblemished, just like my future. The business venture I'd launched out of spite, a boutique consulting firm specializing in corporate takeovers, was thriving. Turns out, dismantling lives had given me a particular set of skills. Companies paid obscene amounts for that kind of precision. My first million came faster than expected. The second, even quicker. My son moved in reluctantly at first, carrying his guilt like an overstuffed backpack. I didn't coddle him. No tearful reunions or forced apologies. Instead, I gave him space to marinate in his regret. He started therapy. I paid for it without comment. By summer, he was working as an intern at my firm, fetching coffee and shadowing negotiations with the same wide-eyed awe he'd once reserved for his father's empty promises. Camilla faded into obscurity, her influencer persona reduced to sponsored posts for meal replacement shakes. The last I heard, she'd moved to Phoenix and was dating a divorced dentist with a gambling habit. Karma had a way of balancing the scales. As for my ex-husband, he drifted between low-paying gigs, his LinkedIn profile a graveyard of short-lived positions. He called once, drunk and slurring, asking if I'd at least let him see his son. I hung up before he finished the sentence. I hosted a party on the penthouse terrace 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Clients sipped champagne as the sun dipped below the horizon, their laughter mingling with the hum of the city below. My son, now more shadow than ghost, handed me a small box wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a keychain. World's best mom. I smirked. Low bar. He actually laughed. Later, alone on the balcony, I scrolled through old photos. Not of them, but of me. The woman I was before the betrayal, before the anger, before I learned how to burn everything down and rebuild from the ashes. I deleted them all. The past was dead. And I was just getting started. The courtroom had been the last battleground, but the victory party happened at midnight on my penthouse terrace. Not with champagne or crowds, just me, the city lights, and the quiet hum of a life rebuilt from the wreckage. I leaned against the railing, the wind tugging at the hem of my silk robe, and watched a plane cut across the sky like a stitch closing a wound. My phone buzzed against the glass table. Another notification about him. A tagged photo from a mutual acquaintance showed my ex hunched over a dive bar, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. The caption read, "Guess who's single again?" I swiped it away without a second thought. Behind me, my son's laughter floated through the open door. He was on a video call with friends, his voice lighter than it had been in years. No more forced cheerfulness, no more walking on eggshells. Just a kid who'd finally seen the truth and decided he deserved better. I could have reveled in their downfall forever. Could have dragged it out, twisted the knife deeper, made sure they never forgot what happened when they crossed me. But somewhere between destroying his credit and exposing Camilla's lies, I'd realized something. I didn't care anymore. Not about them, not about the past. The real power wasn't in the revenge. It was in walking away and never looking back. So I did. I sold the suburban house without stepping foot inside again. Donated every piece of furniture they'd touched. Even changed my number, not out of spite, but because I had nothing left to say to ghosts. The last piece of the old life was a cardboard box in my closet. Letters from our early years, faded ticket stubs, a necklace he'd given me on our 5th anniversary. I carried it to the rooftop incinerator one idle Tuesday and dropped it in without ceremony. The flames licked at the edges, turning memories to smoke, and I watched until there was nothing left but embers. When I turned around, my son was there, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. He didn't ask what I'd burned, just handed me one and said, "You're missing the sunset." And just like that, it was over. No grand finale, no dramatic last act. Just me, alive, untouchable, and finally free.